is a shell of himself. The fact that they really don't have the bench players around him to, like a Houston or even like a Warriors that can really get it done or at least produce at a high level. You can't rely on LeBron to do it as great as he is, do it all by himself. I just think that at this point, this team is not meant to be in the final. It could end up getting it done, but in my heart of hearts, I believe that this team is not built like former teams that we've seen. And I just think that there's too many hands in the pot trying to, I'm trying to do this or I'm trying to do that. When it all comes down to how LeBron does it at the end of the day, it's just never going to get it done. So I think that the Celtics really are going to take advantage of this. And honestly, I think it might be over after the next game.
Yeah, and it's weird. We talked about the dichotomy between Houston and Golden State's playing style, and it couldn't be more true for the Cavaliers and Celtics. I mean, Cleveland really needs LeBron to do everything on offense. If he's not out there, it turns into a shit show. Hey, we can say that now because we're not on 1280.
We're not on ESPN.
Yeah, that's right. I just said a bad word. That's cool. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, dag nabbit. So he needs to do literally everything, or it just totally bogs down. And Kevin Love is not that type of player anymore who you can center an offense around. And Boston, I mean, they don't have. I mean, obviously, guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are really peaking and coming into their own. But you can't say they're superstars. You can't say that these are guys that you are able to take a team to the finals by themselves with a cast of quality characters around them. Boston just has a ton of really good players, and when they try to go one-on-one, they try to go too much, isolation and stuff like that. That's when their offense bogs down. But when they play together, when they use that kind of the Golden State Warriors pass-happy attack, and they're able to find guys cutting and moving around and using screens a lot, Brad Stevens drawing up some good plays. I mean, that is when they're at their peak, and it's not when they're running the offense through just one guy. It's when everyone on the floor touches the ball. So, I mean, obviously that is going to be a better long-term strategy for a team that does not have a superstar like Boston, and it's kind of more appealing to the eye unless that individual superstar for the other team does something absolutely superhuman and heroic like LeBron James has been able to do. It's just a little bit more fun to watch a team that plays together instead of a guy trying to go 1-on-5 and possibly, finding an open shooter and they can hit that shot. But yeah, I mean, LeBron, who knows what LeBron is doing right now? He's probably getting some sort of like super hyperbaric chamber, a hyperbaric chamber inside of a hyperbaric chamber, inside of a, sensory deprivation tank to make him just like a superhuman and come out tomorrow night and try to drop 50 on the Celtics, because that really is what's needed. When guys that you hoped would step up and be key role players who have been there before, who have won a finals before, guys like J.R. Smith, who are averaging 5 points on 23% shooting in this series, there's not really much you can do except ask for LeBron James to be the best player of all time and try to have him carry you on his back, because to say that Kyle Korver is going to be the second best player for your team is not too big of a stretch, and to say that you have a chance to go to the finals still is wild. And if you look at the numbers across the board, Kyle Korver only averaging 10 points, but shooting 53% from the field, 46% from three, and coming off the bench to do so. Ty Lue, I think he is getting getting lapped by Brad Stevens as a coach, because Ty Lue, if he had any of the smarts that Brad Stevens did, I think he'd be starting Kyle Korver, because Kyle Korver may just be the second most valuable player on the Cavs. We'll see if he makes that change, but...
Did you see the article, or maybe it was a tweet or something, that someone said Kyle Korver should have been picked higher than Carmelo Anthony?
I heard about that. I heard
that or something like that. Yeah. I'm kind of botching it. I only saw the highlight from when I was at the bar serving drinks, but that's hilarious. Just because he's playing well in this series, and he's done all right throughout the entire playoffs in his career, but that's kind of laughable to look at, just because Carmelo's not the same Carmelo we knew a few years ago.
Apparently, it was an Instagram post. Hold on, I'm trying to pull up the post right here. Oh, okay. The All NBA Riddles Instagram account said, "Who would have thought during the 2003 draft that 15 years down the line, Kyle Korver would be a better NBA player than Carmelo Anthony. I mean, can you say that right now, the LeBron would say, yes, I will trade Kyle Korver for Carmelo Anthony? He doesn't do that trade right now. Are you kidding me? I mean, Carmelo, look how bad he played for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He wasn't even playing at the end of the fourth quarter in Game 7 when they're trying to beat the Utah Jazz. Kyle Korver is a much better three-point shooter, and really that's what LeBron needs. He needs guys to make threes around him.
Yeah, but we're talking about as a whole in their entire...
No, in their entire career, obviously Carmelo's had a better run of it, but
yeah.
Right now,
I mean, a lot of things factor into the playing of right now. I mean, for one, Carmelo's not playing right now, and yes, he didn't do great in his series, but I mean, injuries or maybe time on the court. I mean, think about it. More time on the bench than Carmelo's had his entire career, so maybe they're just at different points body-wise than they would be.
Right, but Carmelo's also making $28 million. Whereas Kyle Korver is making something like 5 or 6. So
hey, I'm not defending him. I'm just saying.
Okay, all right, all right, Bob. Let's take our one and only break. And what do you want to talk about when we get back? You want to talk about the whole the kneeling thing and the NFL anthem and all that stuff?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we'll be right back. This is Clupping the Goods on Spreaker.
You're listening to Clupping the Goods.
Hundreds by the thousand. I was up late night balling, so far from my past misfortune. No sleeping, late nights, no eating, gun squeezing. I'm a real artesian, Ramona. I was round that counter, still down. I'm a North soldier.
Hi there, Alex Klepper from Clupping the Goods here. Seeing as how Bob and myself are just getting this whole thing started again, we thought we'd reach a hand out to you across the interwebs, unfurl that hand slowly yet assuredly, and slowly caw into your ear. Got any change, bruh? Now see, Bobby and myself are both hardworking men, but this is still a hobby. And maybe one day we'd like it to be a little bit more? Well, that's where you come in, my friend. If you or your business is looking to get your name out there to the millions of Kleppiacs and Goodsians out there, now is your chance. Shoot me an email at abklepper@gmail.com or reach out to me on Twitter and let's talk business. Cool? Cool. Now, back to Clupping the Goods on Spreaker Radio.
We don't believe you, because we the people are still here in the rear.
Bobby. All right, so the NFL, welcome back to Clupping the Goods, by the way. The NFL, what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago? Passed this new rule. They had their NFL owners meetings. They voted on some new rule changes. I believe there are other rule changes that I don't know exactly what they are. Maybe we can dig those up as well. But obviously the one that is making the most rounds, that has become the topic of most discussion on sports radio and, by the water cooler, if you have one of those at your work, is the new rule that the NFL owners apparently, at least their very first indication was, the NFL owners voted on unanimously to approve that the home NFL team, whoever's having the home game, is able to decide as a team whether they want to stay in the locker room for the national anthem or go out to the field and, honor the flag and all that good stuff that they've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. So they can choose to do that, and they won't be fined. They won't be reprimanded. They won't do any of that if they decide to stay in the locker room and not make a show of it. But if you go out to the sidelines while the anthem is going, and if players kneel, then the NFL can and will fine any team that has a player that is kneeling. Now, if you've heard me talk on 1280 on the Solite Show before, or filling in for the Sports Bite, or when I did a couple of my other podcasts for my friends here in San Luis Obispo, you probably know my take on this. My take is that the NFL players have their First Amendment rights just like everyone else, and that they should be able to protest against things in ways they see fit. But I mean, Bobby, to me, this just, the fact that the NFL is doing this and putting this as an actual rule seems like a gross overstep of what they fear to be their main problem right now. And I know that their ratings were down a little bit last year, and most people are going to blame the fact that some fans tuned out because of the anthem protests. But now with this new rule, I think it could be do just as much harm the other side of the political spectrum. Where do you come out in this? Do you see the NFL owners making a good decision here or a bad decision in this new ruling?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, honestly, this might backfire worse than they expected, and it already is kind of starting to. I understand from the NFL's perspective that they want to set a precedent for future games and going forward, but is this the precedent you want to really state? Because, I mean, we're 2 years removed from the beginning of this, and it's like they won't let it die. And I get it that it's not like a subject of trying to let the subject die, because I think it's an important thing about racial inequality to bring up and talk about, and to keep the conversation going. But when it comes to kneeling or standing or doing whatever during the national anthem, I know that it's a tough topic for a lot of people. But in the grand scheme of things, is it that important whether a player wants to stand or kneel? And that's where it really comes down to your own personal opinion. For my personal opinion, I don't really care. It doesn't take away from the game quality for me. It doesn't make me want to turn the channel. It doesn't make me really say, well, that's not right, they should be standing. I understand where people come from in that situation, and at first that's the stance I took. But realizing more and realizing what they were doing it for, I realized it was a very important topic that needed to be discussed, and it was just their way of, it's today's day and age of the fist in the air. Right. It's something that gets a group of people talking, and it was worldwide, and I understand where they're coming from. Now, when the NFL is cracking down on this rule now, 2 years removed, I just feel like you're just bringing up a topic, re-bringing it up when there was really no need to. I mean, last year, I went to a game. I went to a couple of games, and all the players were standing. I just don't see why they are trying to set this precedent. Now it's going to make the players rebel even more, when I don't feel like it was as big of an issue at all anymore in the league. Yes, you're still going to have those few players doing it here or there, but we didn't talk about it really at all last season, so now we're going to start talking about it again now, and it was something that you didn't want to be talking about in the first place. I just don't understand the timing nor the decision, because it's really going to just make people rebel against it, and how is this going to benefit the NFL? I just don't get it.
Right. It's like they want to fight against a social issue that has gathered so much steam by just creating some one-off rule, when really what they're going to do is only empower the people who were on the fence about whether they wanted to do this or not, or empower people who were on the fence about whether the NFL were victims in this, or what NFL players should be doing or shouldn't be doing. Look, I mean, you can't stand in the way of this big of a social statement once it's become such a big deal. I mean, and I think once Donald Trump kind of went after this issue and made it one of his pet issues to go after it, there was no going back. I mean, there was absolutely no going back. It doesn't matter what rule the NFL passes. And not only that, but when you look at two guys who have essentially been blackballed from the NFL, and Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid, who both have lawsuits against the NFL saying that they colluded to not sign them because of the national anthem protests. And now there's reports saying that at least a couple of NFL teams had scouting documents that said that Colin Kaepernick was a, quote, starting level quarterback in the league. To then pass this rule, I mean, how Colin Kaepernick's lawyer must have been dancing and throwing money in the air and maybe burning in his fireplace, because he said, "I'm going to win this case so easily." Yeah, you really want a judge to believe that my client, who was really the face and the leader of this kneeling movement, was not being blackballed by a league that, one, said he was a starting caliber quarterback, but no one ever signed him, who got a meeting with the Seattle Seahawks and I believe maybe the Houston Texans, someone else,
Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens this offseason. But because he would not promise him that he would stop kneeling, that they did